strength to be able to walk away from that after you could have your cake and eat it?
It was one of the most painful, horrible things I've ever done, ever.
Welcome everyone to another wonderful podcast. Even though you caught me taking a swig of my water, it is what it is. But we are here today with Nicole Christian. She has been kind enough to join me and us today to create another wonderful podcast. Yes, of course, I do not have a clue what she does, how she helps people, and what her backstory is. So as always, we're just going to go with the flow and then have that natural conversation. Nicole, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
No, it's a pleasure. It's our pleasure for sure. So we're going to do the age-old boring thing, and we're going to ask you, let us know what you do in your business to help others successfully, and then we'll take it from there.
I am a coach. I kind of cringe at the word life coach, but that is what I do. I'm an executive coach. I help leaders, but I also just love to help people with their lives. It really starts with my loved ones, my friends, my family. I have to really hold myself back from saying, please do this or that or whatever it is. And I always love when they ask for my input on something, because I instantly have journal prompts, questions, inspirations, podcasts, books, all kinds of recommendations for them. So in my day-to-day life, I am a coach primarily, but my background is actually in classical music. I was a professional musician for many, many years, which is why I also brand myself and have many clients as a high performance coach. So I help people thrive under pressure, public speaking, adrenaline moments, making decisions in the heat of the moment, all of those things where I got to have a lot of practice being in front of hundreds of people and being my best self in front of that many people and figuring out how to even enjoy it sometimes. And I felt like I got a lot of the materials for how to do that after graduating music school. Like I got so many amazing resources just from the outside world that wasn't in the conservatory, and ended up really wanting to share it with my fellow musicians as well. And it just overflowed into everyone around me. So I am often holding myself back from telling people what to do, because I just have so many great ideas for them. And yes. Oh, and one last thing I should probably mention, mindfulness and self-compassion are my main focuses. Usually, if there's like one thing I'm going to give you, it's going to be something mindfulness or self-compassion. I love creating like personalized meditations for my clients, for my friends, and really passionate about those things.
That sounds wonderful. So let's find out where that passion comes from, because to me that sounds like you have a natural way about you, and the way you feel for people comes from the heart, and usually that comes from life skills, a way of living in a way where you've had to not learn but make your way through life to gain those passions and the empathy and everything else. So let's find out where that comes from, shall we? So let's go way back in the days where things were really difficult for you. Let's go back to your teenage years where it's really difficult, where something had happened and you thought, and as you don't know, listeners, she's smiling away to herself in a particular way, because she's going, I know where this is going, and yes, I do know of something I'm going to say. So please, Nicole, share.
Yes. So yes, you're right. Superheroes always have interesting origin stories. So as a teenager, I grew up in a very religious household that got more and more religious as the older I got. My dad especially, he just died about a year and a half ago. But he was just getting more and more intense in specifically evangelical Christianity. And to the point where, like, if you went anywhere with him, you go to the grocery store, he's evangelizing to the person checking out the food. He's evangelizing to the massage therapist while
Wow.
he's giving her a massage. He's evangelical. He one of the worst ones was, as like I said, I went to music school, and at my senior recital, because there would be these patrons there. I went to the University of Denver, and they had like big donors, and he was evangelizing to the donors at my reception for my senior recital. That's
Wow.
college, but so that's where it was going. He just couldn't stop himself. It became very intense. And so that also meant I was growing up in purity culture, which meant basically any way that I wanted to express myself, like as a woman, was seen as very threatening and very bad. And there were just a lot of ways that there were a lot of overreactions to things. For example, when I was 15 and a half, I had my driver's permit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the law specifically was that if you have your driver's permit for 6 months, then you are allowed to have a passenger with you. And I had my driver's permit for like 5 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was my license. I don't remember. I was breaking the law very, very slightly, but it was for a very practical reason. Group of friends trying to get to a restaurant. It would have made a whole big trip. And so I get home, and I knew that I had broken the law, which was like a very big deal. And I was honest. And I told my mom, because I felt comfortable telling my mom. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I broke the law. You know, I mean, like, it's very silly. There was this culture of like confession, like, and honesty, like brutal honesty, no matter what, even if it puts you at risk. And then she started feeling guilty in the middle of the night. So she wakes up my dad. She tells him what I had done. And he wakes me up, brings me downstairs in the middle of the night. I mean, I'm talking like 3 a.m. And he starts going through the list of, like, he's like, tell me who was at this party. He's calling it a party. It was just like a group of friends hanging out and then going out for some dinner. He's like, tell me the names of all of them. I'm going to have to call their parents, and, you know, we're going to have to get the police involved. I'm going to be calling the police. And I just remember sobbing, and it was never ending. And that happened one other time where I was honest, like they taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty soon I was like, wow, I cannot tell them anything. And so it was a lot of walking on eggshells. It was a lot of performing really carefully, masking as the perfect Christian girl. It almost wasn't even masking in a way. Like, now that I understand masking better, it was, but I really became her. Like, I believed it with my whole heart, and I had this flame inside of me that was still me, and I found a way to, like, keep that flame safe, keep that flame alive, even while being this perfect evangelical Christian woman. It was really, really difficult to balance that.
How was you able to do that, considering that your whole life was controlled by your father, almost 24/7? Because I'm guessing also, even when you get to school, you know, everybody knew the family. It was a small set community. So even when you was away from your father, you still had to act, because something can come back to your father, right?
Right. And God's always watching.
Exactly. So you were acting for at least 90% of the time. Let's be realistic. About 90% of the time. Would you say that sounds right?
You know, I wouldn't call it acting, because the thing is, I adapted. I found a way, like that flame I was telling you about that I kept alive. That was like my true self. And I just found ways to make Christianity work for that true self. Of course, it came to a head later on. It was not sustainable. The 20s were a reckoning. But at that time, I just was like, okay, well, let's see here. I like this. What scriptures could I use to justify, make that okay, to justify it? Exactly. And then I would find out, well, how could I how could I word this in a way to my parents that's true, that's like 100% true, but like gives me a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is like something I told you, I don't, being neurodivergent is not my like specialty, and it's not necessarily my thing, but watching TikTok videos and having my personality like explained to me
Uh-huh.
as being on the spectrum has taught me that like finding out how to walk that line and be like, okay, I know that if I make eye contact in this way and say this in that way, I will be able to be myself in this other way. And it really was just this balancing act where I had to act a little bit, but also I just found a way to make it work in my favor.
I get you. I mean, you had to find your own path to be able to make your life livable, and I totally get that. But as you're saying, that's like living on eggshells. So for you to do that constantly, I'll tell you what, let's find out how far this goes. So you did this in your teens, but I'm guessing you had to do this with hindsight when you was even younger, because obviously there's certain things happened when you was, I don't know, 4 years old, 5, 6, 7 years old. So you're living in a controlled environment, let's say, when you were so young. Now, especially, and you said you're neurodivergent, right? And you didn't know that at the time. With hindsight, what really affected you massively when you can remember as far back as possible with hindsight? Because obviously your world was your world. You know, that was your world. But now when you see it, how much, and I'm not going to say, I want for a better word, it's not how much damage that was done, but how much control going way back did you have to go through, and how much did that affect you effectively when you was super young, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years old?
I would say pretty massively, but always, you know, nothing's ever one way or the other, right? Life is always far more gray than we like. And so there was a love and an affection, and there were things to look forward to in my life, but it was, I did have to be very controlled always. And some of my key memories are moments where I had a need or a want or a desire, or I had created something and I was told no. I was told, ooh, that is so embarrassing. Like one time I put purple marker on my nails and thought they'd look just beautiful. And I went to go show my mom. This is when I was maybe 5 years old. I was like, look, Mom, I made my nails purple. And she was like, oh no, well, I guess we were gonna have to do this at some point, kind of thing. And it was like,
wow.
Oh, I was so like, I didn't know that this was such an embarrassing thing that I wanted to make my nails a certain color. And to this day, it feels like an act of rebellion to even have like nail polish
really?
on. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's minor, but yeah, definitely. I'm like, ooh, my mom wouldn't like this. And and or even I was really particular about my socks. This was another tip off to me. As I got older, the sock seam needed to lay just perfectly on my toes. Otherwise, they would slip underneath my toes and drive me crazy. Once again, 5, maybe 6 years old. And I was like, I need to get them on. And, you know, when you're so little, you can't get the heel in the right place. And it was like, you need to just not worry about these socks because we have to go. Like, stop like getting them your socks don't have to feel to you the way you want them to feel. And so really finding it was like, okay, so if I want to try something different, I have to do it like if you want to experiment with makeup, do it before you take a shower, because you can't do things after the shower. You want to make sure that nobody sees it. I have a little concept that I use sometimes now called secret cookie, where sometimes I would stash secret desserts. I think that a lot of kids do this sometimes. You stash a secret dessert somewhere, and whatever was happening, I just would remember that I had a secret cookie to look forward to later. And it was like, nobody could tell me I didn't want the cookie. I knew it was there, and I would like just know that I would have it. And I did that with so many other things. I used anticipation. Now, knowing about mindfulness, I know that cultivating those good feelings is just like a really great skill to have in general. And I did it from a very young age. It was part of keeping that flame alive. I knew that if I had these secrets that felt good to me, and I was very, very careful of covering my tracks. Nobody would know what my secret cookies were. Wow. of any kind. Even if it was just a little like hideaway in my closet, kind of like Lane. If you're familiar with Gilmore Girls at all, the character Lane has a cool looking closet where she has lights on and pictures hanging, and she gets to close the closet and her religious mom doesn't find it.
Okay.
And yeah. So did I answer your question?
You did. Now, you got me very curious. So you would actually treat yourself to these special things, which effectively what it did, it put you in a space where you can, in a positive way, to keep yourself happy, upbeat, you know. And as you said, it was a part of you keeping that flame alive. And I find that quite different, because I've never heard, especially someone so young, actually having a trigger to be able to keep certain parts of your personality going in a particular way. Now, you obviously, being so young, didn't know you were doing it in that, but your creativity was such as a person, as a child, that kept you intrinsically you, just by doing those things secretly in the back closet, behind closed doors. So this is something I take it, you carried on throughout your life, doing these little things that kept you being you without everyone else knowing. Do you do that to this day?
Great question. I feel that I do it as little as possible now. I think that it's something that if it's happening, something is wrong, because that means I'm using a childhood coping mechanism. So I try to surround myself with people who support me and love me exactly as I am, and who I do not have to hide my secret cookies from. The people who want me to have the cookie, people who absolutely love it when I eat cookies and don't feel like I need to be taken down a notch and not enjoy things so damn much. Yeah. I'm sorry if cursing is not allowed.
No.
So yeah, I would say I do not do that now, but sometimes I'll catch myself doing it, and it's then when I have to go, okay, what's out of alignment? What do I need to work on here? Which it's always a process.
That's great
for everyone.
No. I respect that. I mean, it served its purpose when you was younger, but you're also using that same trigger to understand when there's something wrong.
Correct.
And that's really powerful, to be honest, because obviously you're now in a position when you're working with your clients, you can find out what their cookie is, and then when you find out their cookie, because you've been there before, and everyone's got a different cookie, right?
Right.
So then when you find out their cookie, you know exactly what's going on within their life, whether it's right for them, and that's the point, right for them or wrong for them. And then I suppose that's the trigger that helps you understand them, which in turns to put something in place to help them go forward within their life. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's a great reflection. Thank you. It's really, I mean, like what I want the most is whenever I find out what someone's cookie is, I'm just like, how can we get you more of that cookie? What do you love about it? Tell me everything about this cookie. I want you to have that cookie. What can we do to get it for you? And really to be for them the person or the cheerleader that I always wanted in my life. To be for someone the encourager that yes, you can enjoy that thing. Yes, in fact, that thing that you enjoy might not be a threat might be the best thing to listen to in this case.
All right. Okay. So now we've looked at your secret weapon, which is the cookie. I wish I had a cookie when I was younger. Better still, I wish it was a cheesecake. But anyway, time is already done.
Cheesecake.
Oh, tell me about it, without a doubt. Let's go back with your neurodivergence. Now, the ADHD side of things, or the ADD, whatever you want to call it. With hindsight now, what did you see reflecting in yourself when you was younger? Sorry, you can hear my neurodivergence coming out now. Was your ADD coming out in you as a child? What were those traits within you as a child?
Yeah. Well, I identify more with autism than I do with the ADHD side of things. And some things are just, so much of it has been finding out that my gifts and the things that I felt made me special, which being special has always been important to me. I'm a Leo, I'm an Enneagram 4. It's being full of myself is sort of one of my things, which was not allowed growing up, by the way. But a lot of the things that made me special are the things that, looking back, I'm like, oh, that's just autism. Like, for example, being so gifted at music, it was just like whatever someone else said to me, I could repeat it back to them exactly the way that they had given it to me. The echolalia, if you've heard that term before, where you can just, or like when I hang out with someone, I start talking just like them. I mean, probably after this call, I'll be picking up on some of your mannerisms. Maybe not as much because I'm doing a little bit more talking than you are, but whatever friend I've been around, or if I've been talking to my mom, or if I've been around a new person who's from a cool place, I just like start doing their accent, or like on accident. And it really made me amazing at music, because with music, it was just like the easiest thing in the world to me, because you just copy whatever they do. Like the teacher does it, and then you just copy them exactly. Same thing with bodies. I can mirror bodies exactly. Made me really good at dance and stuff. If somebody shifts to the right and the left, like I could copy their exact angle. So some things like that. And like I said, I'm sort of at the beginning of my journey. It was really only a year ago. I listened to a podcast about, it was on the show We Can Do Hard Things, if you're familiar with that podcast. They were interviewing someone who talked about how autism is so much less likely to be diagnosed in women because we present so differently. And she goes on to just describe me exactly. And it was just like, okay, this is clearly something I need to think about. Although I didn't really have any problems I could think of that I needed to solve by identifying in this way, or diagnosing, or whatever you want to call it. It just was sort of like a nice awareness, like, okay, that's there. And also to help me understand, because to me, like being direct, for example, that's another element. I've always been very direct. Even growing up, my mom said I was born with my own instruction manual. I would say, Mom, I'm feeling emotional and I'm going to be expressing a lot of emotions, and I don't mean to offend you. And it doesn't really have to do with you. I'm just feeling a lot, and I want to feel them, and I want you to be near me. Can we do that? And she'd be like, yeah. And then I would do it. And looking back, it's like, well, that's pretty weird for a kid to say. But yeah. I felt like I had to be really, really direct to get what I needed, and be really precise. Like, there we go with the eggshells again. The directness was part of the eggshell thing. I could say exactly what I wanted and exactly what they wanted to hear. And yeah, so once again, I've lost track of whether or not I really answered your question.
No, you definitely have. I mean, you've made me resonate with you, because especially when I was younger, I used to feel like I was copying other people also. It never really came to light until you've just spoken about it. But I remember at the time thinking, oh God, I've walked away from this person. I'm doing the same thing as them. That's one thing. As I've got older, I think I've got my own identity. So I've got a stronger personality right now, and I try to just be myself. Or better still, I've accepted who I am, and so that's more solidified. But I used to do that a lot, what you're talking about. I used to do the copying thing. Now when it comes to the dancing thing, well, copying people, that's another thing altogether. I'm a black man that's got 2 left feet, so I when it comes to copying anyone dancing, you don't want to see me dancing. It's not a pretty sight, put it that way. Yeah, no 2 ways
I'll
about it.
take your word for it.
Oh, I'm telling you. So I exactly understand when it comes to when you're resonating in that way. And I know of people that are autistic and they find it very difficult, especially sometimes, to engage. And not all autistic people are exactly the same. They're all different in so many different ways, because my kids are autistic too. So it is quite difficult when we are neurodivergent, but I love the way that we are colourful in the way that we're different. What a boring world it would be if we was all the same, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Completely. Yeah.
I'm so glad that we're autistic and ADD and D, and BBB and whatever else you want to call it. It doesn't matter. The point is, being different is a great us to have, from my point of view. So anyway,
I love it.
Enough from my point of view. I want to speak more about you. So I love the whole situation when it comes to the cookie, because the cookie is very important, because it's a bit like watching Harry Potter. What they call it, the Crocs. Remember when he Voldemort used to hide himself in these
the Horcrux. Yes.
Horcrux, remember? It's a bit like that, really, isn't it? You're leaving yourself all over the place, and then you go and find yourself. And it's a bit like that. I don't know. Maybe you could have written the Harry Potter. Who knows? It's a bit like that. And I totally understand where you're coming from. And what an amazing thing you did as a child. That's obviously helped you, as I said, when it comes to be dealing with your clientele. And also to have the empathy for people, because you had to struggle trying to be yourself and trying to find your identity when you was older, going through college, whatever else you had to go through. That was another stage of your life, because being away from your father and then finding your own way in the world, where then you're not in a close-knit community. How did that come about? When did that change take from the situation you're in, this really tight-set community with your father that could find out what's going on down the road, but now you've in adulthood where you're a bit further apart? How did that transition take place, and how did it feel?
Well, there were a few different stages of it, and I really tried to keep doing the balancing act in each stage. So for example, when I went to college, I lived in the dorms for the first 2 years. And that was just, I met all my best friends during that time. To this day, we meet every other week for Harry Potter book club. In fact, I love that you brought up the Horcrux.
I see.
Which I was not allowed to read Harry Potter growing up because witchcraft. Yeah, witchcraft. So freshman year of college, I read all the Harry Potter books at the behest of my friends who were obsessed with it. And, I lived in a co-ed dorm, which I have no idea why my parents agreed to it, but it was so fun. It was like getting to know people, just like all kinds of people, and just running down hallways and going to class and having my own life and getting to know people. And so that was a very important stage. I was horrified when my parents invited my friends to come to Costco with them, because whenever you have in-town parents and you can get snacks, that's always a big deal. And lo and behold, I turn around and I see my dad evangelizing to like one of the cool guys in the dorm. And I was like, no, Dad! What are you doing? And then I lived at home for the last 2 years of college, not counting the first part of junior year because I was on study abroad. And Yeah, that was a difficult time because I ended up falling in love with someone who was not Christian.
Mm.
And I mean, this person just like got me on every level. Like, it was like all of the weirdness. He wanted me to have my cookie. He like really wanted me to enjoy my cookie. And you know, the part of being a good evangelical Christian woman is you have to marry a Christian man.
Mm.
And so
Well, what was he?
Just non-religious.
Okay.
Just non. And I will never forget the morning, because I did my dance, I did my balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
I had my cookie, but I said the words that made everyone leave me alone as much as I could. And but one morning I woke up, and I woke up because my dad sat down on my bed. So I'm like just waking up. I did not have my faculties sharp. I'm not, ready to play the game.
Yeah.
And he's got his Bible on his lap, and he reads me the scriptures that explain how you cannot be with, like, the do not mix the yolks, that type of thing. If you're familiar with the Bible at all, and the scriptures that Christians will use to promote prejudice within the dating world and trying to control people. So he is sitting with me. He's telling me I can't be with him, and it's like jigs up, like because there's no room for disagreement. There's none. It's just like either you're like, because I was even living there. So what would he do? Kick me out? Like what? There was no, at that time, I did not know how to be my own person without my religious community and without my family. And so I broke up with him, went to grad school. So that was like stage one, ultimate self-betrayal, breaking up with this person who wanted me to have my cookie.
How did you do that, considering you've found this person, the first guy, I'm guessing the first guy that allowed you to have your cookie, so he was a male. Remember, the predominant male in your life was your father, who denied you your cookie, but you did it anyway. Now you found this guy that gave you your cookie, perfect guy, found your soulmate at the time. How did you find that strength to walk away? I understand, as you said, it was a situation you didn't know how to be without your family because that's how you knew, etc. I get that, but how did you have the strength to be able to walk away from that after you could have your cake and eat it?
It was one of the most painful, horrible things I've ever done, ever. He and I are together today, by the way.
Okay.
We got back together almost a decade later, which is like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But at the time, it was like a little death to myself. And Christianity and the Bible is full of metaphors, and it's how you can sort of make it work for your life. You can read whatever story and be like, okay, this is how it applies to me. And sacrifice and redemption is a huge part of those metaphors. So if Christ died to redeem humanity, and that was like a big sacrifice he made, well, often we, his chosen ones, are asked to make very big sacrifices. So I really sort of killed a part of myself in a way. It was a big self-betrayal that required a lot of healing. But at the time, it was like, okay, God, I hope that this is enough for you. Like, do you see that I'm real? Like, I'm really a Christian. It was this proving myself. So then I ended up marrying someone else at 25, and had a marriage. We had a beautiful love story too. It's not like it was a bad relationship. And in the end, things had gotten much worse than they were, but it was its own beautiful journey that was sort of like the next stage of leaving and finding out that as an adult, I had the power to choose my cookie, and I had the power to choose to enjoy my cookie, and I had the power to choose who I surrounded myself with and all of that. Would you mind bringing me back on track though? I'm talking about the stages, and am I bringing us to where I am now?
Yeah. So you've obviously you spoke about the first love of your life, basically. You moved on from there. Now we're talking about your husband, which was a beautiful love story. The first husband. I don't know if you're married to the guy now that you originally loved, because you said you're back together. So you're just going through the story of basically how you've actually just got your life really together and focused. How we got you to the stage where you made that transition, when we was younger to
That's it.
older, trying to get away from your father, because your father was your predominant thing in your life.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I needed. I actually was estranged from my dad in his final couple of years of life, because it just became too much. Because your parents just they have such a hold on you, at least for me especially. They had such control over my brain. I would feel so sure of myself throughout the week, but then I would go to be with them, and then I'd just walk away, and it would be like, who am I anyways? Do my cookies matter? Like, I don't even know, to keep using that metaphor. And so that was really, it was tough, because my dad and I had a very loving relationship in many ways, but he just couldn't quite handle, he could love me as a little girl, but he just had a really hard time loving me as a grown woman. I think that if I had been a man, it would have been easier for him, because he could fathom the idea of an adult man. But grown women were temptresses. Grown women were to be silent in church. Grown women were to do as they're told. I mean, he had no concept of an adult woman that aligned with his love of me as a child. And so it was really unfortunate. It was really painful to be estranged from him. And I went to go visit him in the hospital a few times before he died, just so that we could make the most of that opportunity. But I had to really revamp my entire life. I owned a home with my husband, and I had to sell the home, get a divorce. I left religion for good. The pandemic was such a blessing, because I wasn't going to church every week, and so I wasn't getting the fresh brainwashing each week. And I was blessed to come across many titles, many books that helped me overcome my fear of hell, understand a little better the purity culture that I had been raised in. It was as if my entire life started over anew when I was around 30 or so. And it meant my entire social groups changed. The friends I have today is a much smaller group, because I had to just be like, well, whoever needed me to be the perfectly balanced on eggshells person, they're out. They don't understand me now. They don't approve of me, and I just have to let that go, because I got to do my thing. I have to be strong, and I can't let anyone talk me out of it. I have to just start over new. So really, like being a reborn happened around my Saturn returns, which for anyone who's into astrology tends to be a big upheaval time. So it was that's how I separated.
So that's actually quite wonderful, the last few things you've spoken about, because you've learned to accept yourself for who you are. You've been given the space, or should I say, you've been going through the right process to find out who you are, to have your strength to be who you are. And you've now got to that stage where quality is better than quantity, which you found with your friends. So you got rid of, the people that appreciate who you really are. And you knew that had to happen. and you were okay with that. And with that happening, you're happier within yourself while not watching your back with friends and acting. I will call it acting, but obviously whatever you want to call it. But
you can call it acting.
Yeah, it's you trying to please other people with different faces. And I get that. I totally get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to a stage where enough was enough. I want to be free, and I want to have a free mind to do what I need to do, to be who I need to be, to go forward, to be happy as I'm supposed to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, that really resonates. Yep.
And so because of that, you gave enough space in your life to have a loved one who was supposed to be in your life, and hence you went back to your partner who accepted your cookies. But because you couldn't accept yourself at the time, you weren't ready for the relationship for both of you, while now you are, because this same man will accept your cookies, and you're cool with that because you've accepted yourself.
Yes, you got it. That was so good.
So, hence why you are so good with your clients, because you've had to go through that upheaval for so many years, go through being an actress because you had to. Yeah. And you had to love, hate, and struggle through so many different processes while using the cookie to get you there. And now you're able to help the people and understand them because you've lived the life they've had to live.
Yes, exactly. And it was after that process of upheaval and transformation that it began to flow. My ability to help people around me really started to flow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because you have got the right people around you, which means you've got the right strength and energy and consistency to forge forward to help those people. You don't have to re-energize yourself every time because you're living the life and the energy that you should live. So you find it much easier, right?
Much easier. Yes. Night and day difference.
Do you know what? This is a beautiful story. I tend not to say much at the beginning because I like just to listen and just put the puzzle together. I'm good with puzzles. I'm very curious. As I said before we came on my podcast, I'm just a very curious person. I just want to have a conversation. Hence, I want to know nothing about you. But by just having a wonderful conversation, it just adds to me as a person because I'm trying to work you out and where you come from. But I'm sure it adds to you too, because you realize a few things that you didn't realize before because we've had that natural conversation. But at the same time, listeners, you realize things resonate on you because you're hearing this natural conversation. You go, oh my God, yeah, God, that happened to me. So that's why I'm like that. And that's how, this is how I can change. Maybe I can use my cookie, right? Yeah. So everybody gets helped here. And this is one of the reasons why I do this beautiful podcast and I meet beautiful people like Nicole. How wonderful is this conversation? Nicole, you are so wonderful. And just to see that journey and how you have the gift to be able to help so many people. I know at the beginning you said about, oh yeah, I know I'm another life coach, blah, blah, blah. But you're not just another life coach. You haven't opened the book and just read a few things so you can put a framework around to help someone, but actually you engage, you actually do feel the people from your heart because you've gone through those struggles, and that's your edge, what makes you different. And that's
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel so lucky to have been a guest. Thank you so much. Wow, this is amazing.
And okay, so do you know what? I could easily have these podcasts going on for hours, but let's move on from there. When it comes to your business, how do you help people? Now, you've said obviously you're a life coach. I understand that. But do you help people from a one-to-one point of view? Do you help them from a group point of view or corporate point of view, or all of the above?
All of the above, but mostly one-on-one.
Okay.
One-on-one with corporate leaders, but also with everyday people. I really have been able to distill some of what worked for me and what we've been talking about throughout this podcast. I've been able to distill a lot of that through mindfulness teachings and through the practice of meditation. So I do a lot of personalized meditations, a lot of powerful questioning, where, like what you've done today, where you get to the bottom of what it is. What's your cookie?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you really want? Because I find that many people feel bogged down by distractions, and it's my job to help them figure out where they can really prioritize. I really find that, especially in the modern day where everything's broken down and capitalism makes it so that we have to pay for every little thing that used to be free, and it's just like very busy all the time. Even if you have nothing on your schedule for work, it's just very busy and loud. And so I really try to help people find that quiet place where they have access to their inner knowing, and they can be in a supportive environment where they can really trust that I want nothing more than for them to have what they want, and we're just strategizing on how to get them what they want. Because if I have something else in it, like, oh, I really want you to succeed in this specific way so that I can feel good about it, or I want you to do this, no ulterior motives, none. And I know ulterior motives because I grew up religious. And so it's truly just creating that environment for people where they can get clear, prioritize, distill the practices that are going to benefit them the most, because everybody's different. Everybody needs a different practice. And so that they can start taking actionable steps to make their lives better. That's why I chose coaching rather than therapy. Therapy is wonderful. Everybody should go to therapy. I love therapy. Therapy helped me through my transformation, but it is more like processing the past. What I love is like, how can we get out there and get you what makes you feel alive right now? What steps can you take today or tomorrow? How can you prepare today to have the most delicious, amazing cookie tomorrow? Like, can you prepare the dough today to make that happen? What steps can you take? How can you prepare? How can you prioritize? Who can you call so that we can make this happen for you now? And also create a routine that serves you best, a routine that really supports you. Sometimes people get so distracted by feeling like they should do this or that. And it's like, at the end of the day, you're you. There's all kinds of practices that are out there touted as you must do this or that. But a lot of things that are the most beneficial are totally free and just take a few minutes. Like breathing, just breathing is like the most life-changing thing, to just focus on it. You don't even have to know very much about breathing. And yet just thinking about breathing will change your life. If you just think about your breathing, like for a few minutes every day. You don't even have to know anything more than that. Now, if you do know some more, it really helps. You can take it further. And I love to do breathing practices with my clients, but that's just one example.
Okay, unfortunately, we've got to put a line in the sand. Maybe one day we can have you back on, Nicole. I was so interested in your backstory, and you were so fascinating. There's so much more to speak about, so maybe get you back on at some stage and have another chat.
I would love that. You were so fun to talk to. This felt amazing.
Yeah, you sure it was fun? Yeah, because I felt you felt some awkwardness, and talking about your backstory is not easy, but it's healing, right?
Yes, exactly. And you giving an opportunity to talk about it is such a gift.
I'm telling you, for sure. So how can everybody contact you? Which is the way that they can engage with you?
So I have a link for a link tree. If you wouldn't mind putting that in the show notes.
Of course.
And that'll link you to my newsletter, my LinkedIn, and my TikTok. And yeah, those are great ways to engage. I do love to give advice. So if anybody wants to sign up for the newsletter and ask me a question, I love to answer questions.
There you go, everybody. Now, you know, if you're resonating with her, she's the woman for you. You can see she's not a person that's just read out of a book, but actually has the life experience to help you in a beautiful way. And she will definitely help you in the right way. So just give her a call, have a chat. You never know what may happen. In the meantime, Nicole, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eli.
It's a pleasure. And sayonara to everybody else, and have a wonderful day. Take care.